Welcome to Royal Daily Report, your trusted source for royal news and updates. I'm bringing you a breaking story that has shocked the entire nation. What you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew about the British royal family across Britain. People are in shock as Windsor Castle becomes the center of an amazing moment. Catherine and William step forward, not as future king and queen, but as the actual leaders right now. This has surprised everyone. Some people whisper that King Charles is very sick. Others say big decisions are being made behind closed doors. A few think this is a planned change of the royal family itself. Crowds are gasping. Senior royals look worried and uncomfortable. The world is watching in shock. So what really caused this historic moment? Stay with us on Royal Daily Report, because what happens next will change everything. Don't forget to subscribe to Royal Daily Report for more exclusive royal updates. The moment didn't come with loud music or big announcements. It came with powerful words inside Westminster Abbey. This is the same place where King Charles was crowned just 2 years ago. The Archbishop of Canterbury gave a special blessing. Many people now see this as the real turning point for the modern royal family. His message was simple but important. The crown is no longer just something you inherit. It's a responsibility that goes to those who are ready to carry it. People across the kingdom understood immediately what this meant. Then came the moment that everyone will remember forever. Princess Anne, who is known for being steady and focused on duty, stepped forward. In her hands was a newly made Queen Consort's crown. It was created by Gerard & Company, the royal jeweler who has worked with the monarchy since 1735. The crown had Burmese rubies, sapphires, and diamonds from Queen Elizabeth II's personal collection. This crown represented trust and continuity, not just fancy displays. Palace officials later said 2 versions of the crown exist. One heavy crown is kept in the Tower of London for major state events. A lighter version was made for moments exactly like this one. Catherine wore the lighter crown for only a short time as the church bells rang across London. But that short moment changed how the nation saw her. People noticed she was calm and serious. She wasn't just accepting a symbol. She was accepting a heavy responsibility. Stay tuned to Royal Daily Report for more updates on this developing story. Within hours, everyone could see the change happening. William and Catherine arrived at Windsor Castle for their first public appearance after the blessing. They were now working not just as future leaders, but as the active center of the monarchy. The streets were filled with thousands of people, waving flags and holding flowers. Many wore handmade badges that said for the future, William and Catherine. William moved with control and warmth. Catherine, dressed in a dove-gray coat and wearing the smaller crown, met people with quiet confidence. Children handed her folded notes. An elderly war veteran leaned forward and whispered, "God bless the new queen." Her answer was meaningful. "God bless the king." Behind the scenes, palace workers were very careful with their words. They stressed this was not a regency. It was co-stewardship. King Charles III, now resting under medical care at Sandringham, had officially given over day-to-day royal duties. The power had shifted, even if the official titles hadn't caught up yet. Make sure you're subscribed to Royal Daily Report so you don't miss any updates. One person's absence made the moment even more noticeable. Queen Camilla did not attend. She chose to stay at Royal House for what sources called private reflection. Her decision sparked quiet discussions. One commentator said that while Westminster marked a new beginning, Windsor showed who now carried the responsibility. Public reaction was fast and strong. Social media exploded with hashtags praising Catherine, Princess Anne, and what many called a return to duty-led monarchy. A YouGov poll showed 84% of British people supported the change as timely and wise. Catherine's approval ratings jumped to their highest level since 2022. International news focused on one single image, Catherine bowing to Princess Anne as the crown was presented. CNN called it the defining royal image of the decade. As evening came to Windsor, William paused by a memorial oak tree dedicated to King Charles III. He placed a child's bouquet at its base. Catherine watched closely. In that quiet moment, loyalty met leadership. The real surprise of the day became clear. The monarchy hadn't waited for a coronation to change. It had already moved on, and the country was moving with it. This is Royal Daily Report, bringing you the inside story. When William and Catherine gave a final calm wave, and turned back toward the castle gates. The public saw confidence, unity, and purpose. To the crowds outside Windsor, it looked like a beautiful ending to a historic day. But inside Buckingham Palace, the mood was very different and unsettled. The images already spreading around the world, Princess Anne presenting the Gerard crown to Catherine. Beneath Westminster's ancient arches were being studied not as symbols but as signals. What looked ceremonial to the nation felt uncomfortably close to a succession inside palace walls. At the center of that quiet tension was Queen Camilla. Official statements said she had stepped back temporarily to support King Charles III as he recovered under medical care at Sandringham. Her absence from both the Abbey blessing and the Windsor walkabout was explained as private reflection at Ramel House. But few people inside the system believed it was that simple. Those close to her circle said something deeper was happening. History, they said, was being written without her being there. Camilla reportedly watched the service from Ramel. One close friend later shared that she was moved by Princess Anne's words but shaken by what followed. Anne's role wasn't just ceremonial, it was a declaration. By placing the crown on Catherine's head, she publicly showed where the monarchy's moral authority now rested. Subscribe to Royal Daily Report for exclusive royal family insights. Within days, that symbolism turned into actual structure. Palace rules began to shift quietly but clearly. Reporting lines within the royal communications team were changed. Teams that once answered to both Buckingham Palace and Clarence House were now working directly under the office of the Prince and Princess of Wales. The officials described the move as temporary. Experienced royal observers called it something else entirely, a constitutional earthquake. King Charles, still resting at Sandringham, was said to have approved the changes. Insiders say it was Princess Anne who pushed him to act, offering reassurance that history wouldn't pause for uncertainty. One source remembered her words clearly. "You can rest, Charles. They're ready." That phrase spread quickly through royal circles. Within 48 hours of the blessing, Catherine's schedule showed it clearly. She hosted an informal lunch for Commonwealth youth ambassadors at Kensington Palace. There were no crowns, no carriages, no big displays, just conversations focused on education, opportunity, and innovation. The message was clear. Leadership had already begun. International reaction followed quickly. British newspapers praised her calm authority. Overseas news outlets highlighted her work as proof of a monarchy regaining moral clarity. Yet inside the palace, worry remained. Camilla's private secretary, Fiona Shelburne, resigned days after the blessing, citing restructuring. Staff once loyal to Clarence House were moved to Kensington. One former aide described it as confusing, saying the ground seemed to be moving beneath everyone's feet. Through it all, Princess Anne remained steady. She visited the king twice that week, bringing updates and reinforcing unity. When asked whether the changes were permanent, her response was direct. "The crown doesn't wait for comfort. It waits for courage." The line dominated headlines and showed the sharp contrast between Anne's direct leadership and Camilla's silence. This is the kind of exclusive coverage you get only on Royal Daily Report. Whispers soon followed, with William leading weekly Privy Council briefings and Catherine leading state-facing duties. Some historians began to speak of a dual monarchy in practice, if not in name. Unprecedented, yes, but not impossible. And with each passing day, it became harder to ignore the truth taking shape behind palace doors. Could Britain's monarchy be quietly rewriting itself with William and Catherine sharing hidden power? What does this secret dual leadership mean? A blessing, many were quick to say, is not a coronation. Yet, in the language of faith and tradition, a blessing prepares the ground for what must eventually follow. Those carefully chosen words delivered in Westminster Abbey were widely understood as more than spiritual comfort. To the public, they felt like a quiet approval that the future of the throne had already shifted into new hands. In the days that followed, Catherine seemed to move with confidence that needed no announcement. Photos came out of her leaving Westminster Abbey, not for a formal event, but for an unannounced visit to a children's hospice. No cameras were invited, no advance notice was given. Later that same day, the palace confirmed she would lead the upcoming Commonwealth Youth Forum alongside Princess Anne. Commentators began drawing a clear contrast. Camilla, queen by title, remained unseen and unheard. Catherine, queen by presence, appeared wherever duty felt most human. Don't miss any updates. Subscribe to Royal Daily Report now. Those closest to King Charles III insisted there was no bitterness in the shift, only determination. One long-serving aide recalled a private moment between the King and Princess Anne, where Charles quietly said, "Let her shine. That's what your mother would have wanted." Behind that feeling was a deeper truth. Authority that had once felt delicate and shared was now settling with clarity. That reality became visible during a symbolic walk through the Sandringham Gardens, where William and Catherine met local volunteers who had supported the estate during the King's recent health retreat. The afternoon light was warm over the Norfolk grounds as their car arrived. They were greeted by gentle applause and the flutter of Union Jack flags. King Charles, resting under medical supervision, did not appear, but his presence was felt in quieter ways. White roses lined the pathway. Church bells rang softly in the distance. This was not a goodbye, but leadership in motion. William and Catherine stepped out together, dressed in simple navy clothing, a clear signal of unity and shared purpose. There was no grand coach, no ceremonial display, just two people walking a path once familiar to Queen Elizabeth II. They paused often, greeting the crowd with natural smiles. What began as a courtesy visit quickly became something more. Catherine knelt to speak with an elderly gardener who had tended the grounds for more than 50 years. He offered her a small bouquet of white lilies and whispered prayers for the King. She held his hand and replied gently, "He feels your prayers every day." Nearby, William spoke with young scouts, telling them, "The best service is the kind done when no one's watching." The cameras captured the moment clearly. Neither of them was waiting to rule anymore. They already were. Royal Daily Report, your source for the truth behind palace walls. Inside the main hall, a private reception followed, attended by senior aides and Princess Anne, whose influence had quietly shaped every step of the transition. When she raised a glass, her words were brief but pointed. "The crown is not a gift, it's a relay." Later, Catherine acknowledged that Anne's guidance had anchored them through change. As twilight settled over Sandringham, Catherine hosted a small round table with representatives from the Royal Foundation, the British Council, and the Commonwealth Secretariat. The focus was cultural diplomacy in a changing world. Proposals drafted months earlier now felt prophetic, emphasizing education and sustainability over spectacle. Aides confirmed the ideas would feed directly into the next Commonwealth Youth Forum, which Catherine and Anne would co-chair. Sky News called her the monarchy's moral compass. Yet behind palace walls, not everyone was ready to accept how far the balance had already tipped. At Clarence House, Queen Camilla remained out of sight, yet far from absent. Sources said she spent those days reviewing charitable work and quietly reassigning advisors. Working behind closed doors with what some described as icy calm and others as a calculated retreat, one insider put it more plainly. She felt displaced. This was not how she had imagined the latter chapter of her royal life, watching another woman rise. Not through controversy or ambition, but through years of steady, disciplined service that could not be questioned. While Camilla adjusted, King Charles III was receiving daily briefings from Princess Anne. Each visit was precise and businesslike. She brought photographs from the Sandringham walkabout showing William and Catherine greeting volunteers, speaking with children, and listening more than they spoke. The King studied the images carefully. "They understand the people," he reportedly said. "That's what matters now. Stay with Royal Daily Report for continuing coverage." Shortly afterward, the palace released a single official photograph, William and Catherine walking hand in hand along a garden path, framed by roses and the distant chapel. The caption was telling in its restraint, simply continuity in grace. The public response was immediate. European newspapers praised the couple's composure, with Le Figaro describing a new rhythm of royalty, calmer and more sincere. American outlets focused on Catherine, portraying her as a figure reshaping the meaning of the crown. At home, opinion polls reflected the shift. 86% approved of her diplomatic direction, with many calling her the bridge between tradition and tomorrow. Yet beneath the warmth of public support, a quieter reality was taking hold inside palace walls. Palace insiders suggested the King's recovery could extend far longer than initially expected, effectively placing day-to-day authority in William and Catherine's hands. Official statements carefully avoided the word regency, but the structure spoke for itself. An unspoken agreement had formed, protected by Princess Anne, accepted by the king and sustained by Catherine's steady leadership. For Camilla, that agreement meant remaining queen in title while watching symbolic power move elsewhere. Her place remained, but the center had shifted. Days later, the palace confirmed what many had sensed. Catherine and Princess Anne would co-chair the upcoming Commonwealth Youth Forum in London. Notably, the announcement came from the office of the Prince and Princess of Wales, not Clarence House or Buckingham Palace. Within royal circles, the message was clear. This office was now the monarchy's executive voice for public diplomacy. For Catherine, the appointment carried deeper meaning. It felt like a coronation of values rather than ceremony, the result of years of preparation and restraint. She personally chose the forum's theme, shared purpose in a divided world. Drafting it late one evening at Adelaide Cottage before sending it to Anne, the reply came back short and revealing. Perfect. It's what we've needed for years. Together, the two women had become the monarchy's stabilizing force. Anne, the seasoned guardian of duty. Catherine, the modern architect of connection. This is Royal Daily Report, where we bring you stories others won't. Preparations for the forum reflected that philosophy. Catherine pushed for substance over spectacle. Panels on education, youth innovation, and climate resilience replaced grand banquets. Scholars from Ghana, Singapore, and Canada were invited to contribute. Even the Gerard Queen Consort crown became part of the story, with confirmation that its lighter version was crafted from recycled platinum and stones donated by Commonwealth nations, reflecting Catherine's insistence on ethical sourcing. Yet, as her influence expanded, Camilla's withdrawal grew harder to conceal. Several charity appearances were cancelled or postponed, and when asked about her attendance at the forum, a palace spokesperson offered only careful words of support. Within royal circles, the meaning was clear, and it was against this fragile backdrop that Prince William, determined to preserve family unity, quietly arranged a private visit to his stepmother, an encounter that would test whether reconciliation could keep pace with a monarchy already moving forward. The private meeting at Rommel House unfolded without raised voices or public statements, yet those close to it later described the atmosphere as heavy with finality. William arrived without ceremony, determined to speak plainly. According to sources familiar with the exchange, he told Camilla that she would always have a place within the family, but that the country was calling for renewal. His words were careful, measured, and unmistakable. Camilla listened, composed, but visibly tired. Her reply came quietly, almost worn by time. Renewal comes for everyone, and it never asks permission. When fragments of that conversation later surfaced in the Daily Telegraph, they were read not as bitterness, but as a warning shaped by experience. The balance of power had shifted, and there was no path back. Subscribe to Royal Daily Report to stay informed on breaking royal news. While that chapter closed behind palace walls, Catherine continued to look ahead with remarkable clarity. Preparations for the Commonwealth Youth Forum moved swiftly, guided by her insistence that the spotlight belonged not to royalty, but to the next generation. She personally commissioned a short opening film, refusing narration from any member of the royal family. Instead, young voices from across the Commonwealth told their own stories, speaking about education, opportunity, and responsibility. The final line, approved word for word by Catherine herself, carried quiet force. Leadership is not about who stands above, but who stands beside. Within hours of its release, the film spread across social media, praised for its humility and purpose. Newspapers in Africa and the Caribbean described it as a people's crown moment, evidence of a monarchy finally speaking with, rather than to, its future. Even King Charles III was said to be deeply moved. Princess Anne later shared that he had watched the preview privately and sat in silence. Before speaking, she understands what I tried to begin, only now it will endure. Coming from a king known for patience and long vision, the remark carried unusual weight. It suggested not regret, but acceptance that his legacy would be completed through others. By the time official invitations for the Commonwealth Youth Forum were issued, Catherine's role had crossed an invisible line. Diplomatic briefings instructed international ambassadors to address her formally as Her Majesty. The Queen Consort designate an honorific approved by the Privy Council until a full coronation could take place. Royal commentators called it a quiet crowning, unprecedented in its restraint, yet unmistakable in meaning, without fanfare, without proclamation. Catherine had stepped into a space that could no longer be described as symbolic. Inside palace corridors, aides spoke in lowered tones about how quickly it had all happened. Princess Anne, ever pragmatic, dismissed the surprise. History rarely announces itself. It just moves forward when the moment arrives. Her partnership with Catherine had become the monarchy's stabilizing force, allowing Charles to rest and William to govern without spectacle. Together, they balanced continuity with change in a way few thought possible. This is Royal Daily Report with your exclusive coverage. Soft rain fell over Westminster that morning, yet inside the Great Hall, there was a sense of quiet electricity. This marked the first major international royal event chaired entirely by Catherine with Princess Anne beside her. There were no trumpets, no ceremonial robes. Catherine entered in a tailored ivory suit, wearing only the smaller crown of service. Its subtle gleam sent a clear message: grace, not grandeur. Delegates from more than 40 nations filled the hall. When Catherine rose, she delivered no formal speech, only measured words spoken with warmth and conviction. She spoke of belief over borders and service as the beginning of leadership. The applause came unprompted and sustained. Throughout the day, panels on education, women's rights, and sustainability replaced traditional ceremony. Catherine listened closely, asked questions, and joined discussions with young leaders from Nairobi to Delhi. Princess Anne watched with quiet pride, later remarking that Catherine possessed the rarest authority of all, the kind that demands nothing. That same afternoon, Queen Camilla made her first public appearance in weeks, visiting a literacy charity in Wiltshire. The timing overlapped with the forum, drawing inevitable comparisons. Catherine commanded global attention. Camilla's visit passed largely unnoticed. Sources insisted it was a deliberate choice, an act of dignity, but they privately acknowledged she wanted to remind the country she was still queen. As evening fell, Catherine closed the forum with words that stilled the room. The crown exists not to rule, but to remind that compassion is power and humility is strength. The standing ovation lasted nearly 2 minutes. The next morning, headlines were clear. Catherine was leading the Commonwealth forward. Soon after, Kensington Palace released a photograph of Catherine and Anne clasping hands beneath the Commonwealth banner. King Charles, watching from Sandringham, was said to smile through tears. "She isn't replacing anyone," he quietly observed. "She's restoring what was nearly lost." And in that moment, it became clear. Catherine had not been crowned, but her reign had already begun. Don't forget to subscribe to Royal Daily Report. Behind the scenes of public unity, another story unfolded in near silence. Queen Camilla spent Christmas away from the spotlight at Ramel House, surrounded only by close friends and her son, Tom Parker Bowles. She declined the invitation to attend the Abbey service, officially citing health reasons, though those close to her suggested the decision was measured and deliberate. She understood the stage had shifted. One longtime aide put it quietly. She knew the age of her reign was ending, not in title, but in relevance. At Sandringham, King Charles watched the service on television. When Catherine appeared on screen, composed and radiant in restraint, he reportedly turned to Princess Anne and whispered that his mother would have approved. Anne didn't hesitate. "Then so do I." In that exchange, brief and unrecorded, a generational seal was placed on what had already begun. In the days that followed, protocol adjusted with striking speed. The Privy Council issued a directive, formally recognizing the Princess of Wales as acting head of state for key ceremonial duties, a role never before assigned to a non-reigning consort. Constitutional experts debated the implications, but public reaction was clear. Approval surged. The country had already accepted the change. Christmas morning at Sandringham confirmed it. Crowds gathered despite the cold, eager for a glimpse of the family. When William and Catherine emerged with George, Charlotte, and Louis, the cheers were immediate and emotional. This was not distant pageantry. It was closeness. Catherine stopped often, taking flowers and handwritten notes. One elderly woman clasped her hand and whispered that she already carried the crown without needing to wear it. Royal Daily Report, bringing you the complete story. That afternoon, William and Catherine hosted a private lunch for volunteers, nurses, and military families, replacing the traditional formal banquet once overseen by Camilla. The mood was intimate, grateful, and deeply human. One guest later said it was the monarchy they had hoped for. As evening settled, King Charles delivered a short televised address from His words were gentle but unmistakable. He thanked his family, singling out the Prince and Princess of Wales, praising their devotion and compassion as the living heart of service. Many observers described it as the closest Britain had come to a public abdication in modern times. That night, the family gathered privately at Windsor. William raised a glass beside Catherine and spoke softly of new beginnings, earned, not inherited. Even the king smiled, visibly at peace. Snow fell outside, the first white Christmas in years. The final scene far away at Ramel, Camilla watched the snow fall from her window, calm and reflective. A friend later said she understood the difference. Her crown had been borrowed from time. Catherine's was built from faith. And as Westminster's bells marked midnight, Britain crossed an invisible line. When morning came, the message was undeniable. The William and Catherine era had begun. This has been Royal Daily Report, bringing you the inside story of the Crown's silent shift. What sparked this quiet change in Britain's monarchy? Was it calculated strategy, destiny, or simply an act of grace? How far will Catherine and William's influence truly reach? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated on exclusive royal news that others won't cover, make sure to like this video, share it with fellow royal watchers, and subscribe to Royal Daily Report. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our breaking coverage. This is Royal Daily Report, where we bring you the truth behind the crown. Until next time, stay informed.